Thank you. I'm a researcher at the University of Zurich. Today, I will present the prototype of the Glacier Lakes inventory toolbox that we developed. So the main goal is to develop a toolbox for glacier lakes mapping, where we use the spectral indices like the NDWI and also machine on deep learning techniques, methodologies using that. And basically the toolbox is designed using Python, using the tkinter library. And we use satellite data, both optical, that is Sentinel-2 data, and the Sentinel-1 synthetic aperture radar data through remote sensing. So this is a snapshot of the toolbox. I will show more details interactively with the toolbox after this small presentation. So we call it the GLI toolbox, the Glacier Lakes Inventory Toolbox. So before going to the toolbox, I hope most of you are aware about this NDWA, but just for people who don't know, I just give a quick summary. It's actually a spectral index to map water bodies. And for using Sentinel-2 data, we use the bands B2, which matches the bandwidth, the wavelength of the index bands needed. So we use B2 and B8A to develop the NDWI-B Sentinel-2, which was actually proposed by Professor Hugel, Italy, back in 2002. And we also use radar satellite data, and some of you have already presented the advantages, like one of the advantages is better temporal frequency for Sentinel-1 compared to Sentinel-2. And there are other critical advantages, like in case of shadows. This one shows an example lake from Switzerland. This is Lake St. Moritz in the southeastern part of Switzerland. And this is the OpenStreetMap image. On a day when there was some shadow, you can see on the lake. And this is the middle image. The second image is actually Sentinel-2, where these shadows are visible, which makes it difficult to map the lake. However, on using radar data, it's even more obvious to map the lake. The boundaries are more or less clear. So this is just to show an example of the radar data. And then the other critical case is cloud. When here you can see when there are clouds, the Sentinel-2 is almost useless, but still Sentinel-1 has a lot of data. And I told that we will be using some machine learning approaches to create some maps, which will be included in the toolbox. And this one shows like an advantage of the machine learning approaches. One of the approach proposed by Wangchuk and Walsh. This is like an example where it is compared with an index-based approach for 3 regions. The first figure A shows for Tibetan Plateau, figure B for Eastern Himalaya, and C for Central Himalaya. And this is for glacial lake detection. And the maps, these plots show the frequency of detection against the glacial lake area, and it can be seen that the machine learning approach greatly outperformed the manual approach, the index-based approach, by a clear margin, especially for lakes with smaller area, less than 0.05 kilometers square. This shows the advantage, the power of machine learning that we will try to exploit in the toolbox. And this is the network that we are proposing. This is actually based on deep learning. So basically, there are 2 input branches, one for Sentinel-2 and one for Sentinel-1, which will then go through 2 separate encoders. And then in the shared block, these 2 encoders will encode or map this information from the different heterogeneous satellite data type to a common space, like a homogeneous feature space where it is independent of the satellite images, so that the combination of the features from different satellite images is easy. This will be done by the shared block, and then per pixel output will be predicted for each input part for the lake and the background. So basically, each pixel will be classified either as lake or as background. So this is the glacial lake monitoring network architecture that we are now testing. And we have some preliminary results for some lakes in Switzerland. And this will also be incorporated in the toolbox at some point. And some details about this network architecture is that this is basically an encoder-decoder style design, which is actually very commonly used for semantic segmentation problems for this pixel-wise classification. And you can see separate encoders for each satellite input, and then there is the shared block, which is the decoder. Also, this is a modular design that like we can try different types of encoders or even replace the shared block. So basically the designing is very easy if we follow this pipeline. And a fusion of data from different satellite is possible. Here I've shown 2 input branches for Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2, but this is really scalable. So if you have more types of input satellite data, this can be further incorporated. And as you all know, with machine and deep learning, training data, that is labeled data, is really needed to train the network, to learn the parameters of the network. So this is actually one of the constraints for machine learning. So we need a lot of labeled data, which will be used to teach the system. And then using the trained model, the data from the test regions can be tested for the lake and the surroundings. So here are some preliminary results for this GLM network that we propose. This one, I'm sorry for this team viewer thing. So basically, coming back, so here you can see 4 columns and 4 rows. Each column shows the one lake from Switzerland. So they are actually lakes Sils, Silvaplana, and St. Moritz from Switzerland. And then the second and third rows shows the prediction results using our GLM network, while the 4th row shows the ground truth data. So how it should exactly look like, how it should be predicted. So it can be seen that the lakes are lake versus background separation is actually quite learned good by both encoders. We have tried 2 different types of encoders, and then these are actually shown in the 2nd and 3rd columns. And then both of them predict quite well, but there are some issues with the boundaries of the lake, which will be fixed in the next version. So this is like the preliminary result. So like an outlook, like what is still to be done is like finalizing the machine learning algorithm. At the moment, I've shown the results only for Swiss lakes. So this should be done also for Central Asian lakes. So before that, finalizing different parameters. So the parameter tuning needs to be done, and more experiments should be done on Swiss glacial lakes. At the moment, I have shown the normal lakes in 4 normal lakes in Switzerland, and then adapting of this algorithm for Central Asia will be done at as a next step. So for this, the model which will be trained on the Swiss glacial lakes needs to be fine-tuned using the data from Central Asia. So for that, we also expect some kind of information exchange, like or information about the lake outlines from some years, which can be transferred as a ground truth, which can be used for training the network from using Central Asian lakes, will be appreciated. So also at the moment in the toolbox, we are loading the pre-computed maps, but we also plan to include real-time processing, which is also like a future step. So next I will show a demonstration of the toolbox. And after that, all the suggestions and questions for improving the current version of the toolbox is welcome. So you're now seeing the Jupyter Python version page of this toolbox. And yeah, this is the toolbox, how it looks like. So this one actually shows the Swiss image, the orthophoto map of Switzerland. which we show actually in 2 resolutions. So the toolbox works like there are some buttons which you can use. So at the moment, I will be showing it for Switzerland, but a version for Central Asia will be in the later version. So the Swiss image at the moment is in low resolution, so it can also be switched to high resolution. It takes a bit to load because it's quite high resolution. Yeah. So, and then, yeah, it can be navigated through these bars. And then, so we have also implemented the zoom in and out functionality. So where you can go to, say, a lake, nearby parts, and then learn more about that. So basically, both low and high resolution versions are available. Similarly, we have this digital height model for Switzerland. Again, with zoom functionality, you can go to any place. Again, we have the high and low resolution. Also, for Sentinel-1, a mosaic of Switzerland in both low and high resolution is available. So this is just like a prototype, like all suggestions for improvement are really welcome. And then like a mosaic of Sentinel-2, we have from 4 years, 2017 to 2020, both in low and high resolutions. So this can actually be used like from 1 year to another to see how certain places or certain lakes are changing in some regions. Again, like the Swiss image, both high and low resolution versions are available. So the high resolution version will be really useful to make some studies. Yeah. So this is like the high resolution version of the Sentinel-2 mosaic from 2018. Similarly, from other 3 years is also possible. So in one of the slides before, I have shown the NDWI. So next is like I show the NDWI-B for some regions in Switzerland. So first, we have 2 regions to be shown, like the Zurich and Rhone. So this one shows for Zurich. And on the left side, you can see the Sentinel-2 True Color Composite made from bands 4, 3, and 2 as RGB. And the right side shows the NDWI map for this region. So here you can see the Lake Zurich, Lake Zug, Lake Egery, and there are also a couple of other lakes here. And here, the NDWI threshold can also be adjusted. So here there are like 5 different values which can be changed. So you can see how this, when the threshold is varied using this scale bar, how this NDWI changes. So this is more obvious in another region. This is actually the Rhone region, where there is this glacier, Rhone Glacier in Switzerland. And this is like the glacial lake, this part. This is like, again, for this region, when we vary the threshold, you can see a huge difference. So the optimum threshold is actually, it depends on the region, but using this toolbox, you can actually play around with different values for the threshold. And then I've also created some maps, like pilot maps for regions in Central Asia, one each for the 4 countries. This one shows the region in Uzbekistan, where again, this changing of this threshold is possible. So there is this lake. And for Kyrgyzstan, similarly, the NDWI map and the corresponding Sentinel-2 map. And playing around with this threshold is possible here. Similarly for Tajikistan. And Kazakhstan. So these all are the ones, the results which we have just included in the toolbox, but there are more coming, which we just give a indication of like what's coming, like the whole mosaic of say Switzerland, which we have not included so far. Also the machine learning results, which I have shown the preliminary results only. So the full results will be shown included in a later version of the toolbox. Similarly, the machine learning results for the target regions like Ron and Zurich, and also for the 4 countries, target regions in the 4 countries. So that's all about the toolbox. And if you have any suggestions for improvement of the toolbox, what you wish to see in the toolbox, feel free to tell.
Thank you, Manu. So we're a bit short in time, but anyway, I would still quickly open the floor to any feedback, suggestions, or first impressions you have, if you think this toolbox is on a good track or need something else. Yes, please.
Спасибо за презентацию. У меня вот вопрос. Возможно ли делать выгрузку карты в другие форматы? JPEG, там, Coral, какие возможно?
Technically, it's possible. So basically, we are using Python. So all the libraries which can be associated with Python can be used, like say GDAL or Raster.io, or there are many open source libraries. So using those libraries, it's actually possible to convert.
Спасибо.
Можно вопрос? Имеют ли вот ваши карты координатные привязки к местности?
At the moment, no, they are just the screenshots, but I will be incorporating this using a GIS library, and then they will be georeferenced.
Разрешение пикселя. Можно тоже уточнить? Одного пикселя.
So for Sentinel-2, it's like 10 meter. And for Sentinel-1, I think it's around 20 meter.
Any other remarks, questions, feedback? Yes, please, at the back. Maybe you should use a microphone for translation.
Manu, thank you for your presentation. My question related to the model itself. Do you incorporate any digital elevation model in your machine learning approach? And did you think about doing some kind of overlay analysis to have better results? And then the third one, maybe you could, that's a suggestion, you could add digital elevation model as one of the overlays or the layers in the results to show the elevations or somehow show the elevation.
Thanks a lot for the question. They're very interesting. So at the moment, we do not use DEM, but I assume that DEMs will be really useful in the case of shadows to make it learn for such cases, because it's very difficult with these spectral indices. But in an ideal situation, if there is enough data, training data, the network should also learn these cases. So this is our current hope, that first we check the initial results for the real glacial lakes and see if it's learning, and if it's not, we will incorporate DEM into the pipeline. And regarding overlay analysis, can you tell a bit more detail, like what you meant? Regarding the second question, like a bit more detail about the overlay analysis.
The question was, are you planning to add digital elevation model to your model, machine learning model, to your toolbox? And then the third one was just a suggestion to show the elevation model as one of the overlays for the sites, for the main sites, because it will be interesting to see the changes in elevation, the contour lines, and maybe the lakes.
Thanks. So like I told, this adding of DEM depends totally on like whether the machine learning model will learn it or not. So this decision will be taken at a later point. But this is like, if it does not, definitely we will add a DEM. And for the third question, like we have already shown a digital height model, as one of the buttons. When you press it, like you see it. So this can be also easily done.
The issue with the digital elevation model is as well the acquisition date, which is maybe not the same as the acquisition date of the satellite. So if you have dynamic glacier changes as we face them in this region also, there might be a mismatch in the detailed location. But yeah, definitely. Good point.